There's always this like gap between what we perceive is going on in the mountains and what's actually going on. The idea is that like as we get more in tune to the mountains through experience and education and everything, we like narrow that gap.
The part I'm most worried about is that little wind scoop.
That gap is uncertainty, and that's at the root of risk. And that's why the experience is so worthwhile, because it's one of those experiences where you feel like that demanded everything of me. My physical body, my mind, history of all my experience, my education, the mentorship, everything has been called on in order to like make this thing possible. And boom, made it possible. It can be dangerously empowering.
Run, Joe!
My name's Zahan Billimoria. I live in Jackson, Wyoming with my wife and 2 kids, and I'm a professional mountain guide. I was born in London, in England, and when I was about 5, we moved to Switzerland as a family, and my first connection to the mountains was really through my parents. I just remember how much my dad just loved being in the mountains. The truth is, like, the first time I really got psyched on the mountains was when I saw Cliffhanger. But really, you know, I always wanted to get into the mountains, and I always had like photos of climbing and the Karakoram and the Himalayas and just all these really gnarly places. I, for years, had been like idolizing this guy, Kristo, who is this legendary French mountain guide. And the way he just like moved through the terrain was just like flawless. Right there and then I was like, okay, well, whatever it takes, like that's what I need to be. What's that called? Mountain guide? Okay, cool, let's do that. I went to this small school on the North Shore of Boston, Gordon College. And there were people from all over the world. I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. Like, this is cool.
We met in our first class of our freshman year. The icebreaker activity was like turn to the person behind you and talk about something. And I turned around and the person sitting behind me was Zahan. She's definitely someone I connected with right from the get-go.
September of 2003, my wife and I left our jobs on the East Coast and decided to take a 1-year hiatus. And we rolled out here with a budget of $10 a day. And that's what we lived on for 3 months in the back of our truck. And we climbed every day until our fingers were raw. The first time I laid eyes on the Tetons, I'd been waiting for that first sight since we left Massachusetts. I swerved off the road onto this little dirt pullout and I ran down to the river and I just stood there. I thought, I'm home.
We weren't like terribly patient about wanting to have kids or have this whole life before kids or whatever. Like we were like, no, like let's do this, you know.
Ew.
Wait. Santa.
Where? Right up there? What's he gonna do?
I was so sure I'd made the right decision at that point. It was just like, it's game on. Like, if you want that guide dream you've been talking about, you better go get it now.
Wow. Nice lead. Scared.
The culture of the mountains in Jackson was entirely driven by the guide community. You could just immediately feel that. The only guide operation on my side of the hill was Yosmark. And it was run by this very well-respected local, Rich Rinaldi.
He eventually tracked me down at the shop and told me he wanted to be a ski guide.
I remember he told me, he's like, everybody wants to be a guide. And I was like, yeah, but I really want to be a guide. Like, I'm not kidding, you know?
I quickly learned that he had what it takes, meaning that he has the patience and the focus. He could think 2 steps ahead. Very ambitious, you know?
The human-powered skiing snowboarding experience
is booming right now. And backcountry skiing is dangerous simply because there's so many things out there that can kill you, whether it be the weather, the avalanche conditions. And what I think makes the best guide is someone who observes people and the environment really keenly, and then is decisive enough to act upon those observations and act properly.
I took a climb up first day and I've like never been so psyched in my life. I was just like, this is for real, like it's happening. And then after a couple years, I applied to work at Exum. That's really what allowed me to transition to like guiding full time and then really just like sinking my teeth 100% into this career and this like way of life. I talked to TGR about the idea of starting to film in the park. And so we started hatching plans to bring all the TGR operation and storytelling into the high peaks. And that really gave me the opportunity to like massively expand my skill set. Robin. He is 100%. Nice.
So extreme. Z has always been motivated to be the most challenged that he can be. And he certainly saw big mountain guiding with elite skiers as the top of the game. Like, this is the most challenging and yet most rewarding guiding that I could do.
By the time we're on that thing, it's gonna have to be pretty settled.
Zahan is very precise, super on point. I've watched his commitment and dedication. I love his attitude in the mountains, and like he's just the guy.
Climb road!
3, 2, 1, drop it.
Watch the rock.
Yeah.
It's warming rapidly. We gotta go. Okay, I'll lock you. Come off rappel.
All 4 down and clear. Hallelujah.
Yeah, boys. Thanks, guys.
That was a really exciting era in the Tetons because it felt like opening up a new way of traveling and a new understanding of the terrain that was making things accessible that hadn't felt accessible before. That was really exciting. It was a really thrilling time, but it was also a time that seemed to have a lot of death. As people were venturing out into that really big terrain, the margins were really small, and the catastrophes were rarely survived. That was the beginning of an era of like losing friends. And that really hit me hard and really started to awaken me to the downside of this whole game that I'd been playing. When I look at like the things that I was doing and I comb back through photos of that era, like I hadn't slowed down at all, really. And I had kids through all of that. And I was just going for it. In my mind, I was very, very thoughtful about what I was doing. I was very studious and engaged. And I think I came to a point where I started feeling like, if you're studious and engaged enough, you'll be fine. In 2015, it was the end of the season, and my friend Brooke was having a birthday, and we were gonna just get us a boys' mission in the mountains. So we set our sights on the sickle, And we were in a rush, of course, because we wanted to get there before it got warm. So we were kind of approaching with some trepidation, but as soon as we got to the basin, we found that a massive D3 avalanche had already run, which meant that the conditions for skiing were going to be pretty poor, but that there probably wouldn't be any avalanche hazard because the whole thing is already run. So we climbed over the debris pile and we're boogieing up the couloir, and it's just really firm. We're on the front points of our crampons, and there's like a little skiff of new snow, like maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch, just a tiny little skiff of snow. And everybody's fit, we're moving fast, and we figured we'd pull off for a quick sip of water. Where we're forced to pull off is not really a very sweet spot, and I'm looking up and you can kind of see that we're right in the barrel of the thing. So we're like, you know what, we'll just pull off to the left, and I pulled off as far as I could, and the boys all stacked up next to me, and I hear this hissing sound come from above, and I look up and I see this small stream of snow just like hissing its way down this runnel that's formed above us. So I yell quickly, "Heads up, boys!" And I step to the left to just pull out a little bit further, but my concern level was pretty low. It was pretty small. It fans out as it approaches us, and it hits my right boot and starts washing over my boot, but it's not hitting my left boot, and I'm just kind of standing there looking at my feet and realizing like, oh, it's not that big, it's gonna be fine. That was kind of a scare. And I like look up and everybody's gone. And I was floored. I was like, that's not possible. Like, I didn't hear a sound, and there were 3 dudes right there. And it took a moment before I like fully reckoned with like, no, they've been washed off. They've all been knocked off their feet and they're gone. And I'm looking down 1,000 feet of icy couloir and I can't see anybody. And I just turned around and I just ran straight down. As I'm approaching kind of the apron, I can see this body like crawling across the snow. And it's Brooke, and he's like, "I'm fine." And you know, so we're like, okay, so where are the boys? They're off on the left, and they're not really moving. I find Luke, and he's not breathing, and he doesn't have a pulse. And I turn to Steven, who's just within a few feet, and as I approach him, I can hear that he's breathing. It's really labored, but he is breathing and he has a pulse. So we start treating him and just trying to take care of him. Dug out a platform out of harm's way and started warming him and putting him in a position of comfort, and we're coordinating with search and rescue, and you know, we gave him the best care we could, but it wasn't enough, and he didn't survive. You just looked down and you knew, like, life's gonna be different. Permanently. There's this inevitable experience of wondering why you survived. I stood right there and I didn't hear anything or experience the horror that all 3 of them did, tumbling down this icy couloir over a cliff. I was lucky. Seeing children who've lost their parents, their fathers, it's just, you know, that's a lot to reckon with, and I just felt like they need to not be around like that much death. You know, I don't wish that on them. I think I couldn't correlate reality with my perception of risk. It just seemed like I need to do that every day. I need to do more. I need to go bigger. You know, and then the accident happened, and a lot of that way of being just did not make any sense. And that's why I just had to start back with really simple terrain, like to just like find the love again, find the flow, just experience the joy of being in the mountains and the sun on your back, and
just stayed in like pretty mellow terrain.
He was devastated, he was distraught. He lost 2 close friends. Z seemed to like voraciously seek out new information and develop systems for himself that allowed him to be more confident. And I think Z's motivation is to facilitate experiences for people to be able to travel through the mountains and ultimately not experience what he experienced himself.
For me, you know, I trust him and I trust his process, and what people don't often see is just how much methodical, like intense work he's just put into every aspect to be good at what he does, how he sought out mentors, how he, you know, chooses his partners, all that stuff. But it's that reality of like things can go wrong.
He's been seeking more opportunities to learn, whether it be from the research community, international snow science workshops, or what are people thinking about or researching right now. He's a perennial student, if you will.
I started guiding again, and I spent a lot of time with people who I felt like, yeah, I can do that with, you know. These are people who hunger for the mountains, but they're people who understand risk, and they're gonna be good if I need to, you know, turn around.
So that everybody comes away being able to pull somebody out of a crevasse?
You know, I've never really worked with another guide that I learn so much from every time I'm in the mountains. His ability to assess snowpack and his skills with ropes and just everything to do with being in the mountains.
Yeah, boys, we're out using all our clinkety bits.
Clinkety bits, yeah.
He's just a wealth of knowledge, and I not only feel really comfortable being in that environment with him, but I'm constantly learning, and it's pretty special.
Yeah, boys! Thanks for that.
Yeah, dude, sick. Good on, buddy.
There is this sense that now I'm on another side of this curtain. The curtain's kind of like grief or loss. And that, you know, tempers your vision for adventure in a way that's very healthy. It's just real. It's a reckoning. And to like impart what I've learned from that journey of surviving that, living through that, and then choosing to come back to the mountains and having a chance to like pass that on to a younger generation that is just so hungry and so keen. And that's been really fulfilling.
You can start going up. I've got you tied off to this block.
I think I'm an infinitely better gauger of risk than I was before. I need to exercise more restraint for the sake of my family and my kids, you know, like I absolutely have every intention of surviving my career all the way to the very end. Like that's my goal. Getting this shoulder checked out. It's pretty painful.
and pretty immobile, so I'm thinking it's gonna be a more long-term injury.
Okay, you ready?
Okay. I'm gonna head in for my MRI.
Okay, I'll take your key, okay?
Hey, babe.
How'd that go?
Good.
Bit confused or surprised. I'm just really not. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't really know why I'm still here. The first thing that was going through my head is I was just really angry. Actually, I was just really mad. I was really angry at myself. I just felt really disappointed in myself, and I felt like I just really misread a situation. I should have known better. I'm surprised at myself for that. I've like almost a 20-year career without ever taking a ride. Yeah. And I also just felt like a lot of sense of like remorse over what I'm, you know, putting my family through. That comes to mind pretty quickly. As a veteran, you feel like I've really narrowed that gap and I can perceive what nature is telling me. I can read the signs that are around me, you know, the rime, the wind, the direction, the texture of the snow, all these environmental factors that are just like speaking to you, and they allow you to like close that gap and have this better sense of like what's actually going on below the surface here. But you never eliminate that gap. And when you have an accident, it reveals that gap. But looking back on yesterday or day before yesterday, I'm left feeling like, oh, that was a large gap. It was a misjudgment. Yeah.
Some heat. I want you to bring your right ear down towards your right.
It's kind of ridiculous, really, how selfish what I do is, you know. I think I've just reckoned with that a lot. Yeah, so I mean, I don't really know, you know, what's coming next, but I'm really not very afraid of it. I'm like, yeah, change is good, evolution is good, like growing is good, you know. My life was just accelerating so fast. As much as I would have felt that I was fully present and fully engaged, I think I can look back now and see like, whoa, man, you just had so many things going on and your head was in so many different places. And the best mind frame for understanding natural processes that are going on around you is a very, very quiet state of mind. And for this next chapter, like how I'm processing the last few months, it's like, I have got to slow down. I've got to like live a life that's in bounds. Yes, I still want that. Yeah, that's still part of my life, but like, I don't need to live that every day. I mean, risk is why we love and hate the mountains. The experiences that a high-risk environment yields are very, very special. And I do feel for me that they are like inherent to what it means for me to be human.
We're on the right side of the Grand, it's like steeper, and then there's like a flat tabletop bit.
Humankind seeks risk, like it's very healthy. You know, it's not Disney World, and that's why it's special. Like that's why we all seek it in our own ways, but I feel like human beings belong in there.
Nice one, dude. Yeah,